Boy, you look especially good today. But anyway. So a big, tough samurai once went to see a little monk. "Monk," he said, in a voice accustomed to instant obedience, "teach me about heaven and hell." The monk looked up at the mighty warrior and replied with utter disdain, "Teach you about heaven and hell? I couldn't teach you about anything. You're dirty. You smell. Your blade is rusty. You're a disgrace and an embarrassment to the samurai class. Get out of my sight." The samurai was furious. He shook. He got red in the face. He was speechless with rage. He pulled out his sword and raised it over the little monk, preparing to strike him dead. "Now you are in hell," said the monk. The samurai was overwhelmed at the courage, compassion, and total commitment of the little monk. Why, he had risked everything, his very life, to offer the teaching, to show him hell in a way no words ever could have. The warrior slowly put down his sword and fell to the ground before the monk, filled with gratitude and humility and peace. "And now you are in heaven," said the monk. Have you noticed that life is constantly offering us opportunities to choose heaven or hell? As offspring of God the Good, our natural state is heaven. Yet heaven is not always our experience, is it? Something gets in the way. Seems our upbringing, conditioning, and life experiences have left us covered with imaginary red buttons. These buttons can be as easily pushed and easily activated as the touch screen on your iPhone. And they are all connected to painful memories. If life offers up something that connects with one of those painful memories, especially ones that are stored beneath our conscious awareness, our buttons can fire off so quickly that we're not even aware of having a choice. Is there anyone here in this room today that does not know what a red button attack feels like? So this message has only two really important things to say today. One has been alluded to. Because we are made in the image of God or goodness, our natural state is heaven. What's really important about that is to realize that when we are experiencing heaven in our lives, it is because we are being most ourselves. The other reactions, that hell state of mind, they are the anomalies. They are not congruent with who we truly are. And furthermore, most of the pain of these reactions is caused by this incongruence. The other thing I hope you remember follows from this. It is that heaven and hell arise from inside you, not outside you. They are not the inevitable result of your circumstances. And so they are both very real possibilities in any given moment or in any situation. So when we've lost it and are in full-blown hell, we are miserable. We feel victimized, misunderstood, guilty, and totally alone. Our worst personality traits have taken charge, and we feel like a runaway train. Most of us have visited there on occasion. But there is another, more common and subtle version of hell: the smoldering anger, the low-grade depression, the long-held grudge, the chronic worries, But whatever the particular form of hell, they all have something in common: the absence of heaven, or you could say the absence of light. Happiness, joy, enthusiasm for living, the feeling of being connected with other people have been lost. So what do you do when you walk into a dark room and you can't find something you're looking for? Do you rage about it being dark in there? Do you get really busy trying to chase the darkness away? Do you hide in the corner in fear? No, you simply turn on the light. Okay, you might say, but how do I do that? Joanna, where is she? Joanna. Well, as presumptuous as it may be, I'm going to offer my insight on that question. Not any great theology, mind you, just my own experience. First thing, know that everybody has red button attacks. You are not alone, so just let the guilt go. Just drop it. It's useless. Second, search out and find a heart space of deep compassion for yourself. Sometimes this isn't so easy, especially when we've made a mess of something. See, we've been conditioned by our upbringing to approve of ourselves when we've done well and punish ourselves when we have not. But the thing is, when we've created or exacerbated a relationship problem because something old and painful has been touched within us, it just makes things worse to beat ourselves up. And it causes our wound to deepen, ensuring that the situation must recur. What we need is light, and compassion leads us to the light. So as counterintuitive as it may seem in the midst of an upset, speak words of empathy and understanding to yourself. This doesn't mean running a litany of self-justifications for bad behavior. It just means wrapping your arms around yourself and sending yourself love from the heart. You know, there's going to be time to figure it all out and to clean up the relationship later. First, sit with your own pain and love yourself through it. Amazing things can happen. A while ago, my friend Frances called me. She was furious because she had learned that someone had said something really nasty and catty and totally untrue about her. And to make matters worse, she had said this to Frances' closest friend, and her closest friend had stood there and said nothing. While the gossip hurt, her friend's betrayal was even more painful. "I don't think I'll ever be able to trust Linda again," Frances said. After listening in the heart and giving Frances a virtual hug, I invited her to breathe with me and let herself feel the pain of unfair gossip and betrayal and mistrust. And you know, the minute Frances got still, stopped talking, she began to cry. And we just sat on the phone together, and a little while later, I asked her to imagine that she was wrapped in the embrace of her own arms. And we sat for another second or two. Then I suggested she ask Spirit to help her release the pain and to show her the right action to take with her friend. After only a few seconds, Frances said, "Oh my God." As soon as I asked for help, I got a mental image of my mother standing by while my father was being abusive to my sisters and me. I could see her as clear as day, just standing there, saying nothing, doing nothing. And now I understand why my friend's silence hurt so much. Obviously, Frances' friend was not her mother. But do you see how quickly the mind connected up those two events? Do you see how that painful memory got projected onto Frances' friend Linda? Such a gift, this awareness. It was like the light suddenly came on and the pain of that old memory began to weaken and lose its grip. Now, with greater perspective, Frances was in a position to decide how she wanted to address the issue with her friend. Now, forgiveness was a real possibility, and it was likely that a heartfelt conversation would take place that would not only restore the friendship, but deepen it. Such a common scenario. So what is it that makes it so uncommon? Frances reached out. She was willing to be supported and helped, and the universe responded to her humble willingness. So before she had even approached her friend, the issue was all but resolved, and a new awareness had been given as a pure gift from Spirit. Heaven was restored for Frances through her humility and her compassion. Humility and compassion are the keys to heaven's door. Religious teachings about heaven and hell have had deep-seated effects on our consciousness. I know, we don't believe that heaven and hell are places you go when you die. But there have been imprints made on our souls. Through those childish stories of pearly gates and streets paved in gold for the righteous and fire and endless torment for the evildoers, the concept of reward and punishment were born. Along with the mindset that there is a clear right and wrong in every situation, an obvious good guy or bad guy. And guess who thinks they know one from the other? I do, don't you? And while I'm busy judging things horrible and people evil and situations wrong, who's in hell? I am, right? Think for a moment about the idea of punishment as a way to rectify wrongdoing. It's as old as humankind. And the fear of punishment is an age-old method used by churches and governments and parents to control people's behavior and get them to abide by the rules, many of which are truly arbitrary. Reminds me of the story of that very faithful Episcopalian who died and went to St. Peter at the pearly gates. And St. Peter himself offered to escort the righteous man up the path to heaven. On the way, though, they had to pass through purgatory. In one corner, the new recruit saw people softly weeping. Very sad. So he asked St. Peter, "What have these people done to deserve such unhappiness?" "Oh," said St. Peter, "those are Jews. They'll be here for a while. They are guilty of eating ham." So they went on and passed another group in even worse shape, rocking and moaning. "Well, who are those people?" the new guy asked with alarm. "What could they have done that's so bad?" And St. Peter replied, "Oh, those were Catholics. They were found guilty of eating ham on Fridays." On they traveled and came upon yet another group of people even more miserable than the other two. "So what about these people?" the new guy asked. "What could they have done that was so awful?" "Oh," St. Peter said, "it's really sad. Those are Episcopalians, and they were convicted of eating ham with their salad forks." Control through fear and punishment. How does it actually work? How many criminals do you think have actually been rehabilitated in prison? Not too many, according to the recidivism rates. And how helpful are beatings for turning naughty children into caring adults? More often, it seems like they turn them into inauthentic and untrusting adults. For that matter, how have self-hate and guilt worked for us as a motivation for our own transformation? Guilt and the looming prospect of hell may keep a lot of churches full, but they do nothing to soften hearts. We in Unity churches have chosen a different path. You could call it the path of spiritual curiosity. It is based on the belief that there is only one ultimate power in the universe, God, absolute good, and that divine goodness is present in every human being. Being spiritually curious, I realize I have no idea what is motivating another person, whether he or she lives in the Middle East or New York City or in my neighborhood or in my church or in my family. I don't know why people feel the way they do or what causes them to do destructive things, and honestly, I don't know how to fix any of it. But this I do know. Absolute good is always present and active, healing, harmonizing, offering light and growth no matter the problem, no matter what the pain, no matter what is occurring across the world or in my living room. And because I believe this, I am curious. I look for the deeper, more personal meaning to my experiences and reactions. Something happened this past week that really highlighted this. My apologies to those of you who have already heard the story. I was in physical therapy in my group in the pool, the gym. And a man in the group suddenly started to sound off in a very loud, authoritative way about how much he hated President Obama, calling him useless, destructive, dangerous, and worse. He went on so long that the therapy was interrupted as people gathered around him, most nodding in agreement. After a while, I said to him in the group, I want you all to know that I, for one, disagree with absolutely everything you are saying. I think you ought to realize that there are people who do not see things the way you do. And I am disturbed at your takeover of our therapy time. The man wanted to argue further about Obama's failures, but I declined and withdrew into another area of the pool to resume my workout. But the man kept right on going, until eventually I think his energy ran low, and he and his little group at least continued their conversation in a conversational tone of voice. But I was shaken up inside. But being spiritually curious, I left the pool that day in a state of inner inquiry. What had really occurred? Why had I felt so upset? And what message had that man come to give me? Yesterday, I received an insight. I saw a pattern in my life of being afraid to stand in my power. Many times I have been in conflict between wanting to be liked and being an effective leader. Memories from high school came up, for heaven's sake, and in my life as a business consultant. I thought of my strong reactions to Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, and I wondered, what is it about those guys? There is something similar about them, even though the content of what they are saying could not be more different. And then I saw it. The man in the pool, Trump, Sanders, they are all standing up and telling their truth, knowing there are people who will not like it. This is a magnificent gift for me. Their presence in my life has absolutely nothing to do with the content of what they're saying. In a moment of light, I became aware of all the energy it has taken me all my life to try and fit in with the desire to have people like me. And I felt the conflict between that and my true calling in life. And I felt my fear of being isolated and deemed different. And a gentle compassion came over me. Then I realized how far I had come. Believe me, publicly speaking up to that old Marine was not something I would have done in the past. And by the way, no one in that group spoke to me for the rest of the session, which didn't feel great, but was no big deal either. So do you see? We don't need to know what motivates another person. We don't need to make up a story or cast judgment or give unsolicited advice. The only decision we have is whether to respond from the truth of who we are or from the pain of the past. We can step up in consciousness and turn on more light, or step down in consciousness and contribute to the darkness. One road leads to more heaven, the other to more hell, and it's our choice. Do you remember the Bible story of Jesus' temptation in the desert? You all do, some of you. So Jesus has gone into the desert to pray and fast. And after 40 days, he's tired and lonely and hungry. And that is when Satan comes to tempt him. And Satan promises him unlimited wealth, invincibility, and power in exchange for his allegiance. Satan wants Jesus to follow him. Metaphysically, the satanic tempter is actually the voice of Jesus' own ego or personality, emboldened by his vulnerable condition, trying to take control of his consciousness. Do you identify? The seductive message of that inner voice is to grab hold of the momentary relief of giving in to our lower instincts. Satan whispers, "You don't need to stay out here in the cold, Jesus. You don't need to suffer this loneliness and this silence. Why not give up all this nonsense and take the easier way out?" So when we are most vulnerable to Satan's whispers is when we have become, as the 12-step programs say, hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. This is very wise advice from the 12-step programs. When we do not take care of our health, when we stop our meditation and prayer practice, when we give in to self-pity or fight to be right, I know I'm the only one that does that. When we isolate ourselves, we are most available to one of those red button attacks. So come on, we've all been there. The devil is never anything other than our own life-alienated thoughts, feelings, and actions. And these habits, no matter how deeply ingrained, can be changed. I don't mean to imply they can be changed easily all the time. Positive change sometimes takes some dedication and some diligent attention. But if we're willing to look at ourselves honestly and seek a higher truth, if we really want to change, we will. Who can forget Jesus' powerful words? "Get thee behind me, Satan." Jesus commanded his devil and overcame it, and so can we. So in short, when you find yourself heading down the road to hell, here's a little formula for getting back on the road to heaven. First, realize you're not alone. Human beings make mistakes, so give up the guilt. Second, be humble enough to ask for support. Third, feel the pain of the situation and center in compassion for yourself. Fourth, be spiritually curious. Face the inner demon and ask Spirit to reveal the gift he's come to bring. And finally, consciously choose heaven. So many students were studying meditation under the Zen master Sengai. One of them found the rigors of monastery life too difficult, and so he would often arise at night, climb over the monastery wall, and sneak into town for a little wild living. Sengai, inspecting the dormitory one night, found his student missing and also discovered the high stool he had used to climb the wall. Sengai removed the stool and stood there in its place. When the wayward one returned, not knowing that Sengai was standing where the stool had been, put his feet on his master's head and jumped down to the ground. Discovering what he had done, he was horrified. And Sengai said with a little smile, "It is very chilly in the early morning, my son. Here, wrap my cloak around you so you do not catch cold." The student never went over the wall again. God bless you all.